All right, so we are up to day 161. I've gone through my old journal. The quote for today says, "If you don't have enemies, you don't have character." Okay. Do you think having enemies builds character? What characteristics do your enemies bring out in you? So if you're following along, just maybe pause, take a second to think about how you might respond to this, and I will read what I wrote. I have no idea what I wrote about this. I don't know how I'd even answer this right now. So let's see. Yeah, I started out, I said, I don't know. I don't think I've ever really had any major enemies. Maybe if you think of it in terms of competition instead of enemies, maybe having competition could push some people to work harder, but that's never been a driving force for me. Like, yeah, it's nice to win something, but winning isn't often my motivation. Yeah, so I've never, it's kind of like what I've been talking about in some of the other posts. Like, yeah, I want to win, but like, it's not, I don't have that like massive drive to like win all the time. I'm definitely like not a competitive person by any means. I said I generally try to do the best I can at whatever I'm doing, and if I win, then great. If not, then okay. To be honest, I don't always like winning, especially if there's someone else who really wants to win and would be really hurt by losing. I don't mind friendly competition, I guess, but when other people are super competitive and take winning very seriously, I don't like to compete against them. To me, in those types of situations, there's really no winning. If I win, I'll feel bad for winning because they'll sulk, so I'd rather just not compete. Okay, it looks like I'm going off on another. So I'll just talk about, so there's this one, I've never been competitive like in school or whatever. I've always done really well in school for the most part, but I've never felt like it was a competition against other people. And so I always thought it was weird whenever people would like want to, compare like test grades or whatever. And so I've had some classes where the teacher would like put the highest score on the board, the lowest score on the board, and then kind of, talk about like the in between or whatever. This is how many A's we had. And I was never one of those that wanted to like, there was a lot of times that I would have the highest score, but I actually didn't want people to know. Like I wouldn't go around announcing it because I didn't want people to feel bad about not making the highest score. Like I was happy that I did well, but I don't care about being the highest. Like in school, I don't, I mean, I guess if you're in like really competitive like jobs or programs, then that would be one thing, but I wouldn't want to be in like a high competition environment. I don't like to compete against other people. I want everybody to do well, Like if I did well on a test, I would want everybody to do well too, And I remember I never really noticed it too much until my master's program, and we had an assignment. I'm trying to think exactly what assignment this was. But anyway, we were in a class, and the teacher assigned us these projects to do during the semester. And the project was just kind of, you would pick whatever you want. Like you had to use these tools that we'd learned in class to like evaluate something, but you could pick whatever you want. And I remember I had this friend, and I could tell she was conflicted because on the one hand we were friends, but then on the other hand I got an A on the assignment and she got a B. And I think she had put more, actually on the outside it looked like she put more work into hers, because she was one of those that would like work ahead of time and get the assignment done, and I was one that would wait till the last minute. But somehow like when I wait till the last minute, I would get this motivation, and sometimes, I don't know, sometimes like brilliance would come out. And I honestly, I look back at a lot of these assignments I did that I waited till the last minute, and I felt like I didn't do a very good job on them, and then I read them back later and I'm like, where did that even come from? Like, this is actually pretty good, but I don't know how I pulled that out, like it just, that would happen to me sometimes. And I remember she was like upset. I could tell that she was upset that I had gotten a higher grade than me, but we were friends, and so she didn't really want to be mad at me. But that was the first time that I really felt like a strong competition with somebody. But I wasn't competing. It was like she was competing with me, but I didn't want to compete. I wanted her to do well. And so yeah, that's kind of weird. I don't like competition. I'm realizing now that I really don't like conflict. Like, anything that's going to get me into conflict, I just want to stay away from it. And that goes with competitions too. And I've got something else I may want to talk about, but let me finish reading what I wrote here. So I said, this is the same strategy with dating. If I feel like I have to compete, I'll just take myself out of the competition. So yeah, I'm not one of those girls that, like, if a guy is letting me know that, like, oh, you've got competition, I'm just like, okay, if she can have you, like, whatever. I'm not going to compete. I said, overall, I don't think it's necessary to have enemies to have character. I guess if you put yourself out there, it's inevitable that at some point people won't like you, but I wouldn't necessarily classify them as enemies. So maybe there is some truth to that, because like I said, I kind of have gotten enemies just for doing well in some cases, but it's not me considering them enemies, it's them considering me competition, but I'm just kind of like oblivious to it. And I think that's recently come out with something that's happened between me and my sister. Like I said, my whole life, I just want to stay away from conflict. And I had a dad that was very, he was a narcissist. And so he was kind of irrational and very egotistical. And I don't know, somehow I learned at a young age that he just wants to feel like he's right. And so I learned at a pretty young age how to deal with conflict with him. So even if what he was saying was irrational, I would just agree with him and be like, you're right, I'm sorry, I'm gonna do this. So for instance, like, most of the time, like, it's like he would get hyper focused on certain things sometimes, and other times he wasn't. So it was hard to tell, like, what was gonna upset him at what time. And it did seem irrational. For instance, like having our rooms be clean. 80% of the time, he didn't care if our rooms were messy or not. But then he'd get in his mind one day that's like, you guys need to be cleaning your room. You guys need to be helping out more around the house. And it seemed irrational because he was messy and he didn't help around the house. And most of the time, he didn't care if our rooms were a little bit messy. But then he would get in this mindset, and I would be like, okay, well, he's upset about this right now. I don't want to get in an argument with him. So I'm just going to be like, you're right, I'm sorry. And then I would start cleaning my room, and then it would die down. But like with my sister, she would see him as being irrational and being a hypocrite. And so she would get upset whenever he would ask him to do things, and that would cause like a fight. And so now I'm realizing that I was just always trying to stay out of conflict, and she didn't really shy away from it. And so I think that put her and my dad's situation at odds. But, and then it led her to feel that, like, I was the favorite because, my dad didn't argue as much with me. But now I'm just kind of like, maybe I was seen as the favorite, but it wasn't like, I feel like she could have done the same thing. And just like, I don't feel like it was me actively trying to be the favorite. It was just me trying to avoid conflict. And she could have avoided conflict. And I tried to tell her before, like, just agree with him, and like, he'll forget about it, like, right after, and then he's not going to bring it up again for a while, and like, whatever. But I got a message from her few months back, and from that message, I got the impression that she's felt like she made some comment that made it seem like she felt like I was always competing with her, like it was always a competition between the two of us. And I had just never thought of it that way. Like, I never was actively trying to be better than her, or actively trying to have my parents like me more than her, or trying to make better grades than her, or anything like that. And I just realized, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's thought that our whole lives we were in competition with each other, and that I was in competition with her, and then I'm trying to show her up. And like, that was never in my mind. And now I'm like, wow, like she's always felt like we were in competition. That explains like a lot about kind of like our relationship. And you know, that's just it's never been the case. And I I want her to do well. I'm happy when she does well, but now I'm, you know, just kind of rethinking like my whole childhood and my whole relationship and interactions with her, like coming at it. You know, I wish she could see my perspective, because I think that she thinks that we're in competition, and because that's how her brain is, that she's always been in competition, and it's just not. It's just I just tried to do good just to not be in conflict. It was never anything like me against her. And so, yeah, I mean, I think maybe if you do well, you will just automatically get enemies, because some people do have that more competitive nature, and maybe you can't really help having enemies, but I just kind of stay oblivious to it. I think I've been oblivious to it most of my life, and yeah, I don't see people as competition or enemies. I want everybody to do well. So I don't know. I wonder what makes people be competitive like that. Because I do know some people that just seem like inherently competitive. They love competition. They love arguments. They love conflict and all that stuff. But that's just not me. So I don't know. Anyway, that's what I had for day 161. I'll be back tomorrow with day 162.